this is your financial inputs, your cost schedule. What does paint cost? What does your floors cost? What is base and trim? What are your cabinets per linear foot, right? What are your countertops per square foot? Those sorts of things. And it'll take all of those inputs and it will create your potential exit strategies for you. And we'll show you what that looks like. So I'm going to actually jump into the calculators and run through that layout so that you can see what we're talking about by calculators, and we'll jump back into the rest of this acquisition process flow. So let me jump into a calculator here. All right, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about the calculator process, the inputs and how it works. So the first thing we've got is you can clone these and create your own version. You could have a low, medium, high. You could have a rental. You could have a flip calculator input. You could have it by different markets. Maybe one's Philly, one's Boston. You know, you can set those up however you want so that they're available to use cross markets or in different scenarios. First thing is, if you want to use just an MAO rule, 70% rule, rent rule, you've got those available here. So I can give it, say, hey, like I want this to be my 70% rule calculator. Right? I can give it that, and then I can double check this box or check this box. And now it's going to, instead of running through custom calculations to identify MAO, right, which is going to use your ARV and a bunch of other things, it's just going to assume, let's use 70% ARV minus repairs. And then, or rent rule, right? 1% of my sale price. I need my monthly rent should be 1% my sale price. So you can turn that on too for rentals. The next is your margin targets. So what is my minimum gross profit that I need to make? And then the next is what is my gross profit margin target, right? So a percent of ARV, very common across the country, is 10%. Either myself or the buyer needs to make, I want to make roughly 10% ARV on any property. Now, this will be the greater of these two numbers. The calculator will look for the greater of 10% of ARV or your minimum gross profit target, okay? And then you can override those later if you need to. The next one is minimum cap rate. So if it's a rental, what cap rate do I need to achieve to be able to sell this as maybe a turnkey rental, or if I want to keep it as my own rental, right? So what's that cap rate target we're looking for? The next is if it's a wholesale or a hotel, or really mainly a wholesale, or maybe an ovation, or going to go to another buyer who's going to do the renovation potentially. What is their margin target? How much do they need to make? Because of course we need to know what's our spread, what's their spread to make this deal fly. Next, you've got lender costs. What are origination fees? If we're borrowing either private money or from traditional lender, what are origination fees in points? What's our cost of capital, so our APR, 8%, 10, 12, less. And then what's the standard lender LTV, right? How much will they typically lend on any of our deals? 75%, 100%. And so that including, repairs. Will they give us all of it or not? Next is the commissions, listing, and closing costs, right? So you've got your lead manager, underwriter, acquisition agent, disposition agent, and transaction coordinator. They all could have some or no commissions, but by putting them in this calculator, when I select the calculator, it's gonna automate those for me, right? So I don't have to put those in manually. These are, you'll notice a little information bubble. We'll tell you a little bit more about all of these fields if you need it. These ones, if it's less than a certain number, it will assume it's a percent of the profit. Otherwise, it assumes it's an absolute dollar amount. So the lead manager is 25, that's that break point. Anything less than 25 is a percentage. Anything greater than is a dollar amount. And you'll see those for these here as well. And so let's say in this calculator, I want to say my lead managers make, $150 per contract, per closing. The next, the listing agent commission. So if I'm going to list this, if I'm going to go retail and list this retail, what do I typically pay in my market for listing agent? Then selling agent commission. And then if this is a retail deal, if I have my own in-house brokerage or agents, what's the standard commission split? Or maybe I work with an agent outside of the office. What's the commission split that they're going to take, right? If I give them the deal, do I get 30% or 50% back? What do I get? The next is my purchase closing costs or my acquisition closing costs. Right? Typically, this is going to be 1 to 2% pretty commonly. Of course, depends on lender fees if you're borrowing money and some other things, but typically 1 to 2% for closing fees on the acquisition side. Now, if it's a wholesale, of course, that zeroes out unless it's a double close. But at any time I got to take the property down, what are my purchasing costs for that? The next is the retail sale or disposition closing fees. Like, what's your standard retail? This will be used for me if I'm retailing it, but also the buyer. So if I'm wholesaling it, they're going to have to retail it at some point. So what's their expense going to be, right? And that's typically 6 to 8% or so, right? You're going to have your agent commission fees plus your other closing fees that might be included in that number. All right, so now we're going to get into the renovation or rehab inputs here. So first is, do I just want to use a flat price per foot number, right? So this might be my 70% ARV rule using $25 per foot for renovations, no problem. So I can say I can put that $25 per foot in there, use rehab per square foot, and that's just going to override all of my scope items, really, right? If I do this, I don't really need a scope. It's just going to say, hey, it's $25 per foot based on the square footage of the property. The next one is my rehab daily spend. Now, you may ask, well, why is that important? This is really useful, very commonly used to identify your turn time. Like, how long is it going to take you to renovate a project? On average, industry standard, about $1,000 a day, either in new construction or renovation, either way, is a pretty common number. And you may have something more or less than that, but pretty common. If I'm spending 60 grand, it's going to take me at least 60 days to finish it, most likely, right? So that's how much I can spend in that time. And then the next is your average turn time, right? So a lot of redundancies here on purpose. I know that doesn't really simplify, but it allows to make for more accurate calculations, because that's such a crucial piece of the process is getting your numbers right. Is you can get yourself in a bind real quick by having bad numbers, and you can make some really good deals work if you got the right numbers. So rehab turn days on average, how long does it take you to turn a project? The next one is around rehab scale, economy of scale, I should say. We found in our markets that there's typically a break point when you start getting economy of scale benefit. And at that point, you're gonna have a little less per foot price, right? So we found usually 1,500 to 2,000 feet. After that, you start paying about 20% less per foot on materials and labor and other items. And so what's that scale breakpoint for you if you have one? And then what's that percentage adjustment on those per foot items? How much is that going to come down? The next one is a quality breakpoint. We also found that over a certain price point, we typically needed nicer finishes, right? We needed granite countertops or quartzite countertops. We needed custom cabinetry, right? We needed nice, instead of LVP floors, we needed, travertine, or we needed marble floors, or just, whatever that might, hardwood. And so that quality breakpoint, what's that dollar amount where, hey, when I start getting over this price, I probably need finer finishes, right? Better workmanship. And then what's that price adjustment for that? So, it doesn't even have to be like high end, but just kind of that mid-tier break. Now we're going to get into our rehab levels. Level 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So level 1 and 2, cleaning, interior paint, drywall, repair, and carpet. Okay, so basics, price per foot on cleaning, drywall, paint, carpet. Rehab level 3, demo, hard floors, base and trim, electrical fixtures, kitchen appliances. Most of these are per foot. You'll notice, so electrical fixtures is per fixture. We do run takeoffs and we approximate how many fixtures are probably in the home or on the property. And then the kitchen is a full dollar amount, right? So how much does it typically cost us to renovate a kitchen? And then appliances, we do have appliances separate from the kitchen, right? What appliance packages we typically put in there. Level 4, exterior doors, landscape, and paint. Doors per door, paint, of course, square foot base, and then landscape package. Level 5, full drywall, interior doors, cabinets, countertops, showers, plumbing fixtures. So we assume we're redoing all the bathrooms, we're redoing all the walls, we're redoing all the doors, all the cabinets and countertops throughout, and fixtures. So that is there's our standard out of the box level 1 through 5. You of course have additional items: insulation, roof, trash out, bathroom, sliding doors, framing, full plumbing, full electrical. Maybe it was burnt, had fire damage. We wanted to take it, if this were ground up construction, we could use it as well. So you've got a number of those things in here. One thing we don't have, I don't think, is full underground, but could be added for sure. So those items are here and available for you to use at your disposal. And you can add more. You can always add more and add them into the calculators, and add price per foot or absolute numbers. The next one is development and construction costs. Right? So if you're doing land dev, you're doing new construction or maybe manufactured homes, what's your average price on land development is per acre, right? What's it going to cost you per acre for entitlements and utilities? New construction, average cost to build a new home, right? So we just want to ballpark, hey, I got land in, I'm thinking about putting a new home on it. What's my price going to look like? This is very rough estimates. You would of course do something much more specific, but your average home, what's it going to cost you? And then turn time, how long to turn the land, how long to build the home. And then if maybe I just want to put a manufactured home on it. So, instead of a new construction, there's other options, right? Mobile homes and others, but we commonly put manufactured homes down on smaller lots, rural places where it fit the area, location. So what's your price for that manufactured home, including, buying the home plus setting the home, placing the home, and how long would it take to put it there? So that, I know that was a ton of inputs there on the calculator, but really useful and important to understand how it works and the inputs that are available to you. So I've got my condition and scope, I've got my calculator, my financial inputs, my preferred exit strategy or deal or dispo type, right? I'm going to try and wholesale this first, and maybe that's novation, maybe that's a flip, maybe that's something else, but I'm going to start with wholesale, and I'm going to say the rent on this one we saw, was $4,000. We'll up it a little bit, maybe we can do a little bit more with that, and I'm going to run the calculator. This calculator is going to take the subject property and run takeoffs, right? Bed, bath count, roof squares, windows, how much linear feet of cabinets and the square footage of countertops is going to approximate plumbing fixtures, electrical fixtures, all of those things, carpeted floor versus hard floor. And it's going to take my scope, right, that I gave it, and my inputs of the calculator cost schedule, wholesale exit strategy, and my ARV, and it's going to populate a preferred acquisition amount, so max allowable offer right here, my estimated rehab costs, holding, closing costs, your total estimated cost, and I'll talk about the difference of that in a second, and then your estimated gross profit. Now, because this is a wholesale, the rehab, holding, and closing is for the buyer, right? So we're looking at what's their acquisition and retail closing costs, what is it going to cost them to rehab based on this scope of work, and then if they've got to hold it based on those same numbers we gave, what's the holding cost, right? Do we have tax amount in there? What's their holding on taxes? What's their holding cost on capital? Interest fees, etc. If I don't like one of those numbers, I'm like, it's just not quite right, I can override that guy. Say, you know what, let me recalculate my exit strategies with a $75,000 renovation. If my calculator was using a different rule, right? And maybe I was using a price per foot, like $30 per foot or $40 per foot, right? I may have gotten something different, but just so keep that in mind. Here we can see we're using the 70% ARV rule. That's from the calculator, so it's letting us know, hey, by the way, you are using an ARV rule for MAO. That's where this is coming from. But now we can see our profit would have adjusted a little bit, which it did, and our estimated rehab, now that we updated that, and our MAO changed, based on that 70% rule that we're using this time. The next cool thing is I can actually look at all my exit strategies. So now I've got this table here, right? Show table. I can see rehab, hold, close, max level offer, cost, sale, suggested sale price, profit margin, cap rate, and expected turn days for wholesale and for each of those exit strategies. Maybe it's a hold tail, and I'm going to have a little bit more cost, of course, right? I'm going to have because I'm taking it down, I'm going to have my acquisition cost, I'm going to have my portion of the renovation, my closing costs on the sale as well, the retail side, and so that's where those costs are coming from. If it's a wholesale, if you actually select wholesale here, you'll see and recalculate that, you'll see your estimated wholesale cost, rehab and holding costs. So that's available if you need it. Then the flip calculator, right? If this is just a true flip, I'm going to have the full renovation, holding, closing costs, all mine. And so that's showing there what my exit price is. But here I can see my profit margin on that guy in turn days. Right? So yes, I've got a little bit more exposure. But I've got more profit opportunity based on this MAO and this ARV. Next is rental. As mentioned in the calculators, we're going to try and peg that cap rate that you're interested in. And so if I want to keep this as my own rental, and I want to get at least six cap, then you can see, hey, I can only offer 420 on this guy. Here's what my rehab, holding, and closing are going to be to get it to that 6% cap rate at, of course, the $4,200 a month that I'm going to get. Now, this is going to assume a 35 to 40% cost. So your net operating income is going to be about 60 to 65% of your gross income, right? So it's assuming there's maybe some management fees, some vacancy. Got to assume there's some vacancies in there. It's going to assume you got some taxes or HOA fees. It's going to assume some repairs or maintenance fees, right? So kind of a standard number there is that 30 to 40% is a pretty good ballpark on your expense for that rental. So that's what it is, making that assumption. And then you've got these other options, right? Novation is here, turnkey rental. You'll see that this was like, hey, you can't make money on a turnkey on this guy. If you've got to get it to a 6 cap, then you got to get it for 420 and sell it for 504, and it's just not going to pan out with the repairs needed. So you can see right away that wouldn't work, most likely. So that's the calculation table available to you, right? I can hide that, and so now I've got my rehab, holding, closing for the buyer, in this case, my total cost. If it's a double close, right, I'm gonna wholesale it, but I got to take it down first, which is unfortunate, but happens. I can also approximate, I can put in a double close cost, or I could recalculate this guy, and it will approximate my double close based on those same calculator inputs I've given, right? So it's saying, hey, you're probably going to spend about 18 grand if you double close it in closing costs, right? So that's included there. Then I've got my profit margin. It's 100%, right? In this case, because it's wholesale. And then I've got my estimated percent ARV is now 63%. Now this one, the reason it's lower than 70% is because that's including repairs, right? If I took just straight up percent of ARV, including the repairs, I'm at 63%. I'm at an estimated rehab of $19 per foot. I'm at a 0.7 rent rule, 7, not too bad, not great. And then I'm at a 4 cap, right? So at this acquisition price and these numbers, I'm at a 4.1 cap rate. And so you've got good details there to help you understand if this is a good deal, right? Is it going to work? Not going to work.